Krishnamurti, in dialogue with Father Eugene Shellert. J.Krishnamunti was born in South India and educated in England. For the past 40 years, he has been speaking in the United States, Europe, India, Australia, and other parts of the world. From the outset of his life's work, he repudiated all connections with organized religions and ideologies, and said that his only concern was to set men absolutely, unconditionally free. He is the author of many books, among them The Awakening of Intelligence, The Urgency of Change, Freedom from the Known, and Flight of the Ego. In dialogue with Krishnamurti is the Reverend Eugene J. Shellert of the Society of Jesuits, the director of the Center for Sociological Research at the University of San Francisco, where Father Shellert is an associate professor of sociology.
You've said that in order to achieve this seeing that we have been discussing, that one must arrive at a state in which he is attentive and freely or choicelessly attentive to the other. I possibly can give his undivided attention to the other.
Yes.
And before we take the next step, could I say that we are really not looking for an answer to the question, what is seeing? Are we not looking for seeing itself, which is really not an answer?
Is there an answer, sir, when there is real perception? Actually what is there an answer?
Perception is not an answer.
No.
I must insist with you that perception is not an answer.
But when there is perception of what is. What is in the world, what is in me. I am the world and the world is me. That perception, not a conceptual perception, but actual perception. The world is me and I am the world. There is no division between me and the world. I am the world. There is perception. What takes place in that perception? That's what you're asking. Is that it, sir?
I'm asking, yes, what takes place in the perception? It is difficult for us to use a word because, in a sense, for so long we have taken each other, our dualities, our world, as a given, taken it for granted. And because of this predisposition to take things for granted, I think we have, in a sense, made it impossible or difficult for us to simply perceive.
That's right, yes.
But once we can control this and say what we are really interested in is the simple perception that precedes all rational, logical knowledge of any kind, or all of our biases and all of our prejudices, and from which these biases do not come, then we are ready to
rather, wouldn't it be putting it, there is no perception if there is a bias.
There is no perception if there's a bias.
That's right.
A bias is that which precisely makes perception impossible. It's when I do not want to perceive you.
Of course, I build a barrier.
Build a barrier, yes.
Whether the barrier of religion, barrier of politics, barrier of whatever it is.
Now, if it is true that in the pursuit of seeing you in the pursuit of the perception of you, what is needed within me is not me.
Yeah, that's right.
And what is needed within you is not you.
Yes.
Then, when we speak of such things as perception, are we not in some way or another speaking of such things as oneness or truth?
I would not come to that yet. To me, it seems seeing the world is me and the world, I am the world, or I am you and you are, seeing. Psychologically, whether I'm a Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, we are the same. Inwardly, we're all in a state of confusion, battle, misery, sorrow, with appalling sense of loneliness, despair. That's what the common ground of all humanity. There is that perception. Now, what takes place when there is that perception?
That is what we're trying to pursue and to explain, without explaining it.
And that's what we are going to share together in this.
Yes.
There is perception of sorrow.
Of
Sorrow.
sorrow.
Let's take that. My son, my brother, my father dies. What takes place generally is I escape from it. Because I can't face this sense of tremendous danger, of loneliness, of despair. So I escape. Escape in ideology, in concepts, in dozen ways. Now, to perceive the escape, just to perceive, not check it, not control it, not say, I mustn't perceive, just to be aware, choicelessly again, to aware that you are escaping. Then the escape stops. The momentum of escape is a wastage of energy. You've stopped that energy. Not you have stopped. Perception has ended the wastage. Therefore, you have more energy. There is more energy. Then, when there is no escape, then you are faced with the fact of what is. That is, you have lost somebody. Death, loneliness, despair. That is exactly what is. There, again, a perception of what is.
I think I see the direction you're taking. What you want to say is that when I perceive that you are sorrowful, because I don't perceive sorrow, it doesn't exist by itself. So when I perceive that you are sorrowful, what I perceive is that you have been separated. And this is a source of sorrow, because now your father is dead and you are separated. And in perceiving that sorrow is associated with separation, or am I not perceiving that joy is associated with...
No, sir, not yet. The fact is I've lost somebody. That's a fact. Burnt, gone. And it is something gone, finally gone. And I feel tremendously lonely. That's a fact. Lonely, without any sense of relationship, without a sense of any security. I'm completely at the end.
Many people speak of this as saying, I am empty now.
Yeah, empty. And there is an awareness of this emptiness, of this loneliness, of this despair. I said, when you don't escape, you conserve the energy. Now, there is this conservation of energy when I'm facing the fear of my loneliness. I meet it. You are aware of it. There is an awareness of this fear of loneliness.
But now how can you give your undivided attention to someone whom you have lost? Simply and finally.
I've lost him finally. But now we are examining the state of the mind that has lost.
Yes, we're trying to understand.
The mind that it says, I'm lost everything. I'm really in a desperate sorrow. Right? And there is fear. See that fear. Don't run away, don't escape, don't try to smother it by courage and all the rest of it. See that fear. Be choicelessly aware of that fear. Then in that awareness, fear disappears. It does disappear.
Yes.
Then you have now greater energy.
Yes, and we've all experienced that, how seeing fear disarms fear. Yes.
Next, what is there? Why is there sorrow? What is sorrow? Self-pity?
Well, when it's associated with anxiety or fear, then we will have to call it self-pity.
Self-pity.
Yes.
What does that mean, self-pity? You see, that means me is more important than the person who's dead.
And so you didn't give your undivided attention to
I
that
never
person.
loved that man.
Precisely, yes.
My child never loved that child.
Yes.
I never loved my wife or husband, sister. It is there I discover there is in this state of awareness, there is the discovery that love never existed.
Or in the discovery of a sorrow which is associated with grief or with separation or with fear, there's the discovery that love has been horribly limited.
And
if
I
existed
didn't
at
have
all,
it. I couldn't
didn't
have
it.
it. Love means something entirely different. So now I've got there's tremendous energy. If all of a sudden, not escape, no fear, this sense of self-pity, concern about myself, my anxieties. So there is this, out of this sense of sorrow, there is this bubbling energy, which is really love.
Which is really love. Yes, yes. So now we have discovered that when one gives his undivided attention to another...
And no, I have not given my attention to the person who is dead, my father, my son, my brother.
No.
I have given there has been attention to the state of my mind, the mind which says, I suffer.
Yes, but we have been trying to examine what I suffer means in the context of what choiceless attention means.
So I find love is a total attention.
Love is a total attention.
Without any division.
In a sense...
I think this is really important because, you see, sir, for us love is pleasure, sexual, other ways. Love is pleasure. And love is fear, love is jealousy, love is possessiveness, domination, aggression. You follow? We use that word to cover up all this. Love of God, love of man, love of, country, love of so on, so on. All that is the love of my concern about myself.
Yes, all of that is self-love.
Obviously.
But it's the me that is being loved, not the self that is being loved.
That's no love. That's a tremendous discovery. That requires great honesty to say, well, by Joe, I've never really loved anybody. I pretended, I've exploited, I have adjusted myself to somebody, but the fact that I have never known what it means to love, that's a tremendous honesty, sir. To say that I thought I loved and I never found it. Now I've come upon something which is real, which is I've watched what is and moved from there. There is an awareness of what is, and that awareness moves. It's a living thing, not comes to a conclusion.
Now, why is it that in our attempt to pursue the question of undivided attention or choiceless attention or simple seeing, that we very naturally slipped into the question, and I think it's not really logical, it's very naturally slipped into the question of simple loving as opposed to fictitious or fraudulent loving or conditioned loving. There must be something about the loving and the seeing process which is so similar that we can slip from seeing to loving and really be discussing the same thing. And as we move, well, move is not a good word.
No,
as we become aware of as we develop this undivided attention, or this choiceless awareness.
Not, if I may suggest, don't use the word, humbly suggest, not the develop, that means time.
That's why.
Be aware.
Be aware. Yeah, we're struggling with words because
be aware of the carpet, the color, the shape, the form. Be aware of that. Don't say, I like, don't like, this is good, this. Just be aware of it. And then from that grows the flame of awareness, if one can so call it. You see?
But you see, haven't you said the same thing in different words by saying, be aware of the other, of the carpet, of the tree, of the universe that within which you live, and then you translate into another level of perception, and you say, love the carpet, love the tree, love the universe, and you don't feel that there's a difference between being aware or seeing undividedly and loving undividedly or unconditionally.
Sir, when you are so aware, there is that quality of love. You don't have to say be or not be. It is there. It's like a perfume in a flower. It is there.
The two are they're not different sides of a same
No,
coin.
it
They're
is
the
the
same
same
coin.
thing.
Same
Same
coin.
coin.
Yes, yes. With no sides at all. Yes. So that then to see in this undivided way, choiceless way, and to love in this choiceless way must be one and the same thing.
Yes, but you see, the difficulty is we are so eager to get this thing that we lose the real thread of it, the beauty of it.
Yes, yes. Now suppose that we were to move our discussion one more step, or maybe another step, because it's not more, and say that as far as we can perceive, to be aware and to love are one and the same thing. Could we move one step further and say to be is the same as to see and to love?
What do you mean by,
I don't mean further now.
the word to be? Everybody says I am. The whole young generation at present says, I want to be. What does that mean?
I'm sure it means very little. I think it means be active.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, or be possessive.
Yeah,
or
be possessive, be angry, be violent. I am.
Yeah.
That's what I am.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the word to be has a connotation about it that is associated with activity,
Yes.
which can only follow from this inner energy, which is what to be
So
means.
that all this brings us to a question: whether man can change at all. That is the fundamentally. It seems to me that's one of the major questions in the present world. The structure and the nature of human beings have to change.
Well, when you use words like structure and nature,
Structure in the sense
those mean categories to me.
No, the way he lives.
Can man's lifestyle change?
Yes. The way he lives, the appalling pettiness, the ugliness, the violence, the brutal, what's going on.
I would say that there should be nothing but despair relative to the question of change if, when we're dealing with the question of change, we were dealing with the creation of new categories to replace old categories.
No, I don't mean that.
If, on the other hand, we were dealing with the question of changing from the without to the within, and can men do this? From the to-do to the to-be, from the pretense of love to the love, from the perception of categories to seeing. Can men change in that direction? I would have to ask that, do men? And they do. You have done it. I have done it.
So, I mean...
Will men do it?
Because man has lived as he has lived, with such appalling brutality, such a deception, such lies, hypocrisy and all the rest of it. I mean, if I have a son, a brother, it's my concern, my responsibility. Not to change him, but to show, to see what it is. Not I don't want him to imitate me or conform to my pattern, which is absurd, or my belief. I have none of that. So I say, look, how is it possible for a human being to change? This change not into a particular pattern, to bring about a total psychological revolution.
If I were to start someplace, Krishnaji, I believe I would start with you. Not because I think you need changing, because I don't, or because I think you would want to change, but because I think you want to teach, you want to share. You have received so much joy from understanding and from loving that this radiates from within you. Now, if you wanted to teach someone that there is more to be seen than is seen, and the more is not quantitative, but in depth, maybe I would want to change you in this direction, that when you speak of the world and its conflict and its tensions and its violence and its hypocrisy, that you may also address yourself to some other question, which I'm sure you have done, but don't speak of it, the question of not only the endurance of inner conflict or exterior conflict, but the endurance of inner joy and exterior joy.
Now wait a minute.
These are always there when you talk, but they're not expressed.
When does joy come? When I don't seek it. It happens. I don't have to cultivate it. The mind hasn't to pursue it.
Yes, the mind cannot pursue
Therefore,
joy.
I have to understand, there is an understanding must take place. What is pleasure and what is joy? That's where we mix it. We mix
our
it
levels, yes.
To understand joy is more important than to understand pleasure. To understand pleasure is far more important to understand joy.
Yes.
Because we want pleasure, we pursue pleasure. All our, everything is our pleasure. The whole moral, social structure is based on this enormous pleasure. And pleasure does breed fear, insecurity, and all the rest of it. Now, in the understanding of pleasure, the other thing comes. You don't have to talk about it. The other thing flows like a fountain. You don't even call it joy. It's something in ecstasy, something.
Are you saying then that in the pursuit of fear to escape, or in the pursuit of
joy,
anxiety,
pleasure,
or in the pursuit of pleasure, in both pursuits we find death, and also a death to what? The dissipation of energy that keeps us from being joyous.
That's right.
And from being joyous and being seeing and being loving, or simply being, is all the same thing.
So it is, you see, the negation, through negation the positive is.
Yes.
Not the positive, assert the positive, is to negate the real.
But as we have said before, to negate the categories is really not what we're dealing with, nor are we dealing with the negation of seeing simply. We're dealing with the negation of all of those obstacles, like pleasure, to joy. Because unless you negate pleasure, you will never be joyous. And when you're joyous, you're also quite pleasurable.
I don't talk about it. The moment you're conscious that you're joyous, it goes.
It goes, yes.
Like being happy, and you say, well, how happy I am, it becomes nonsense when you say how happy I am.
But now, yes, because now you've rationalized it and put it into category, and now it becomes something to speculate about rather than to do, yes, or to be, yes. At the same time, if we are to since we are pursuing as deeply as we can the pursuing seeing and understanding and loving, or this undivided attention, since we're pursuing that, And we found that one cannot pursue it except by negating fear or negating pleasure.
Yes, sir.
As being
understanding pleasure, understanding
Understanding
the
pleasure,
whole
yes.
nature of pleasure.
Yes. Then we must ask ourselves, well, if these are not the avenues to seeing or loving or being, then, and I suppose we will ultimately get to the question of being or being one. I suppose we may get to that question, because we want to discover that you are one with the world and the world is one with you, and you are one with myself and I am one with you. We want to discover that. So, and we've seen that that seeing must take place, and loving must take place, and an awareness of being must take place. We've seen what to do to get rid of these things that get in the way of the most exhilarating of all experiences or realities, the reality of just being. I am enough. I don't need these things to be. Here I am. See, that kind of thing. And then what would you think would be the next step that one would have to take? And we're not talking about process or method now.
No.
What would you perceive to be the next step?
Next step of what?
In the development...
From what?
From this undivided attention that we discussed earlier, and from this loving, which we found to be the same as attention, choiceless attention, and from this being, which we found to be the same as loving and seeing or understanding. And now we're trying to pursue your
what takes place next? What
experience of... I don't like to use the word oneness because that gets us at the end before we go to the middle scene. But pursuing, what does one do next after one has seen and has loved and has been? In whatever order you want to put those. One lives. So that to live is the same as to love and to see, in any real sense.
I mean, it means, doesn't it, the understanding of death.
The understanding of death.
Death. Because to love one must die.
Unquestionably, yes.
So there must be the investigation, the understanding, the awareness, what it means to die. Without that, there is no love.
But could not this be a fiction, because who is to tell us what it's like to die?
We're going to find out.
Fine, good.
I mean, I don't want anybody to tell me.
Right.
Because that means authority.
Well, it means dead people who can't speak.
And no, not only that. If somebody, the whole Asiatic world believes in reincarnation, as you know.
Yeah.
And in the Christian world, resurrection, all the rest of it. To find this out, one must investigate if there is a thing, any permanent thing in me that reincarnates, that reborn and resurrected. One must inquire into this question if there is anything permanent. Permanent? Nothing is permanent. The carpets go. All the structure, the technological thing, all the thing man has put together is just
but you're not suggesting that the measure is permanent.
Huh?
That the measure, you're not suggesting that the measure is permanent.
Measure.
The measure. You were born, and you have lived, and you will die.
Yes.
And this will take you a certain number of years.
30 years, 20 years, whatever it is.
Is the measure real,
No.
or are you real?
No. I'm not talking in terms of measure.
So then if the measure isn't real, but something external to you, then do we have a right to say that you end simply?
I'm coming to that. So we're coming to that. You know, the whole Greek world thought in terms of measurement.
Yes.
And the whole Western world is based on measurement. And the Eastern world said measure is illusion. And they went into other kind of
measures.
Yeah, other kind of measure, and they call it immeasurable.
Yes, yes.
Now, I'm saying, sir, living as we now live is a conflict. What we call love is the pursuit of pleasure. Yeah. what we call death is an avoidance, is fear, dread of it. And being afraid so completely, such an ending, we have reincarnation theory, various other theories which give us great satisfaction, great comfort. And that is not an answer.
No, right? It keeps us from seeing the reality.
Reality. So negate all that. So what have we? There must be the understanding of death. What is death? That is the physiological ending. We don't mind that. We all see death everywhere. But what human beings are concerned is the psychological ending, the me ending. The me which says, I own this house, my property, my wife, my husband, my knowledge, I'm going to lose all that. Therefore, I don't want to lose. The known is more attractive than the unknown. The known is the factor of fear.
In a rational world.
And we're looking at it.
Yes.
So I have to understand, what does death mean? Does it mean that there is a permanent entity, call it the soul, the Hindus call it the Atma, doesn't matter what name you give it, a permanent entity that never dies but evolves, resurrected, incarnated in time? Is there such thing as permanent entity? Not a theory, not a speculative assertion there is or there is not, but to find out for oneself if there is a permanent entity. The me that says, I must survive. Therefore, I must have future lives, whether in heaven or it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Is there such thing? Which is psychologically,
yes.
Which is this, which thought has put together as the me.
I cannot conceive of there being a permanent entity associated with what we call the me.
No, obviously.
Obviously, yes.
Then is there a permanent me apart from that?
But then we can ask the question, is there something immeasurable about me apart from that?
The moment you say the me is the immeasurable, then I'm back again.
You're back again, sorry. Apart from the self.
I'm going to find out.
Yes, now we must pursue that.
That's it. There must be discovery of whether there is the immeasurable or not. Not there is or there is not. One must come upon it. Yes. The mind must come upon it. So, there is no permanent self. Higher, lower, no permanency. Therefore, what is? Then, death. Physically, biologically, there is death.
This we all understand. We see it all the time.
Everything goes. What one is afraid of is the psychological accumulation in relationship of every form of image, knowledge, function. That's what we are frightened of losing. Mm-hmm. That takes the form of the me, which is going to evolve, become more and more perfect till it reaches heaven or whatever you like to call it. We see that's false. Then what is death?
You were suggesting that we can discover the meaning of the words to live by looking for the meaning of the words to die.
They are related.
They are related. Unquestionably, they're related.
They're related.
And most religious writers in the history of comparative religion have said that in order to live, one must die.
So, as I don't read these books or any of these things, it's an actual fact. To live, you must die. Yes. Which means dying every day to all the accumulations that you have gathered during the day, ending each day dying. So that the mind is fresh every day, is new.
Yes, and now, in order that we might pursue the question of to live by looking at the question of to die, and looking at it finally.
We do.
The ultimate death.
We do.
Where the body has disintegrated in the grave.
Body is important. Look after it, care for it, and all the rest.
But bury it when it's dead.
Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Bury it. Burn it.
Whatever.
Simpler.
Yes. Yes. Now, suppose that we want to see what happens when one dies,
Now,
in order to see what happens when one lives. That's what we're doing.
Therefore, I must first understand what it means to live, not what it means to die. My life, one's life as it is a turmoil. As it is. It is chaos. It is a mess. With all kinds of ideals, conclusions, it's a mess. Now, unless if there is no order in this mess, I can't understand what death is, because death is perfect order. I don't know.
And now, by what do you mean? Because order to me is something imposed from without.
I'm coming to that. Death is perfect order, because it is the ending of disorder.
All right, I understand. Yes.
So, there must be the ending of disorder in my living.
Yes.
And the ending of disorder is to be aware what is disorder, choicelessly. What is disorder? My belief, my gods, my country, my saying this better, all this terrible violence. See it as it is. And when you see it as it is without separation, you have energy, as we went into that. Then, in perceiving disorder, there is order, which is harmony. Now, having established that, established in the sense, see it, realize, be it, then death is not separate from order. They are together. Order means the ending of disorder.
Yes, and disorder or order means a consciousness of my presence within you, or your presence within me, or of our oneness. We must pursue the question of our becoming aware, or giving this undivided attention, or loving each other, which each other is eliminated.
Yes,
in other words, this is a
there
duality.
There is only a state, sir, look, sir, there is no you and me.
Yes.
I'm not you and you're not me. There is that quality of awareness, choiceless, that sense of attention in which the me and the you ceases.
Yeah.
You don't say it's unity. Unity implies division.
Oh, but you're using unity in the mathematical sense now. I'm just using unity in oneness. To me implies oneness to me means the same as undivided attention.
Definitely, yes.
Doesn't mean division. It doesn't presuppose division.
When there is no, you see, sir, we are discussing what does it mean to live, to love, and to die.
Yes.
That is, the ending of disorder is the ending of death. I don't know, it's great beauty in this. And in that state, there is not you and me and if there is no division. Then you can find out in that state what is the immeasurable. Only then you can find out, not before, because then it becomes merely speculation, or somebody says there is immeasurable, there is no God, or God, that's no value. It's only when there is this complete order, really mathematical order, born out of disorder, not a blueprint imposed on disorder.
Yes.
Then you'll find out. Then the mind discovers whether there is an immeasurable or not. That nobody can say yes or no. Because then if you don't see it, if there is no perception of the immeasurable, then it merely becomes conceptual. And on religions, most religions live on conceptual.
Suppose we were to pursue this question of order, the next step,
Yeah.
and ask ourselves, when we say things like this, that peace, harmony, like the harmony of my fingers working together, or like the harmony of you and I in our dialogue, if we were to say that peace or harmony is the tranquility that's associated with order, and wanted to say, and what more do we mean by order than just orderliness?
My good. Orderliness every housewife has.
Yes. And can be in complete turmoil in the
Turmoil
possession of
inside.
orderliness.
We are talking not only outward order, but deep inward order.
Yes. Now, what does this deep inward can I use the word ordination rather than order?
Ordination, I don't know quite what.
The ordination of one to another, and then remove the divisions.
Ordinary. Oh, if we understand by that word, order in the sense, no conflict.
Yes.
No friction, no sense of me being bigger than you, or no comparison, no sense of ambition, greed,
Possession.
The real quality of mind which is not concerned with all this bilge, with all this nonsense, then that is order.
Yes. So that then order and peace and tranquility, which is energy in its fullness, rather than
yes.
rather than the lack of energy.
Yeah.
It's not activity, but it's the fullness of energy. Yeah. So it's dynamic.
That is necessary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which means when there is that complete order, the mind is no longer in conflict, therefore has abundance of energy.
And what has been done by you or by me as we relate to each other in order to achieve I'm using...
It does matter. Go
yes,
ahead.
you understand. In order to achieve this order that we are speaking about.
You can't achieve it. You out of being aware of disorder, choicelessly, order comes, naturally.
But is it true that many people do not achieve order? And we were also asking the question, can we change disorder into order, or can we change death into life? Can we change hate into love? Can we change blindness into seeing? These are the questions we've been dealing with. And we haven't answered the question, can this change take place? We've just, there it is, you know. But if we wanted to deal with this...
you listen to what is being said. You give your whole attention. Not as a Catholic or this or that. You give your complete attention. You're in that state of attention, there is a transformation. You're no longer a Hindu, Buddhist, or whatever it is. You're finished with all that. You are now a total human being. Then you go around talking about it. You follow? You are not. You are active. You are not. You are an outsider operating on the world. But you are not of the world, but an outsider.
Would you say that in our conversation, that the closer we get to the truth, the less conscious you become of the fact that I am Catholic priest? Has it mattered in the last?
Not in the least.
Not in the least.
But it's up to you.
And it has not mattered to me whether you are a priest or not a priest.
But
I haven't even thought of that because
no,
I'm
sir, it makes
giving
a little difference.
Choiceless attention to you.
It makes a difference. Take, for instance, this I have met in India and elsewhere. Several Hindus have come to me and said, why don't you put on sannyasi robes? You know, sannyasi, that is monk's robe. I said, why should I? To show that you are not of the world. I said, look, I'm not wanting to show anything to anybody. This is real to me, that's good enough. If you want to come and listen, listen. But don't go by my garb, by my gesture, by my face. That's not important. But to them it's important because they use that as a platform from which to attack or to distract or to take. But if you're not standing on any platform, if you don't belong to anything, why should I be any collar, no shirt?
Oh, but I think as we pursue the question of what it means to live and to die, to be and to not be, to love and to hate,
And so,
as we pursue those things, we must also at the same time pursue the question, what does it mean to belong? Now, if you ask me, do you belong to the Catholic Church, I would say, of course not, because I am not a thing which can be possessed by anyone.
quite.
Nor is the Catholic Church something that I possess. So we'd not like to use the word belong. If we had a love relationship with each other, could I say, you are my friend?
Yes.
No, I couldn't, because that would connote belonging.
I see what you mean, yes.
And I could not say you are my friend. We use the word all the time, but the word my distorts what we see
So,
when we see.
I'm questioning, why do we belong to anything at all?
I don't think we can. If we are free,
Why do,
then we are not slaves, and then we don't belong to
Therefore,
anything.
that is the main thing.
Yeah, the possessive relationship
No,
is
that
is irrelevant.
Not to belong to any organized spiritual religious group or belong to party, this or that. Because that encourages division.
Yes. If I am free, those mean the same thing, then I'm not capable of being possessed by anyone. I don't belong. It doesn't. The word doesn't mean anything.
But one has to be, not to belong means to stand alone. Not.
But this is a contradiction of what we've been saying during the whole time. No, not to belong is the price one must pay for being and loving and seeing.
Yes, but
anything.
Yes, sir. But also it implies not to belong to any structure which human beings have put together.
Yes.
Which means that you have to stand alone, outside, not belong to all these messes. So, when you have order, you don't belong to disorder.
But now I think we're getting close to what we wanted to say, that to die is to live. And not to belong. Is that a concept or a reality? No, that's an experience. That's a reality.
Must. If it is real, it's something burning. It isn't just it burns everything, falls.
Yes. I see that, and of course we experience this all the time. What I'm saying is that if one can get over the fear of dying, then one can understand and live with the fullness of this energy that we're talking about. I think by the same token, if one can get over the question of belonging or having in any way, one can get to the question that being is. And this is, I wonder if this is loneliness or being alone, or I wonder if this is
that's what the
one.
danger of being, one has to go into that. What is it to be? We can put into various categories. The category is not be.
But when you suggested that when we were discussing the question of what it is to be, and we pursued this through the question of dying and belonging, and you said to be is to be alone, and is that what you want to say?
How can I, sir, if I die to my conditioning as a Hindu, how can I belong to be a Hindu? It has no meaning.
Fine, but having died to
so
being...
see what happens, sir. I throw away the garb of Hinduism or Catholicism, whatever it is. And what takes place? I am an outsider. I'm an outsider in the sense, I may say, I love you, but I'm still an outsider, because there is a state of disorder to which human beings belong, and the man who is outside, he doesn't belong.
Unquestionably, or may not have a sense of belonging, or cannot use the word to belong. I cannot use the word to belong.
There is no relationship.
There's no relationship.
Now, when there is no relationship between disorder and order, You follow, sir?
I follow.
Then, what is the state of the mind which is not that?
And you are suggesting that the state of the mind is one of being alone.
No, alone in the sense it is not contaminated. It is really innocent. It's really innocence in the sense it cannot be hurt. After all, the word innocence is born, is the root meaning, is not to be hurt.
Yes.
No, Shara, you know that. So, it is no longer, though it may live in the world, it's not of the world.
It's in the sense of conflict and turmoil and
all the
tension,
messy
all of
stuff.
the messy stuff. Yes. And one.
Now, that is absolutely necessary to find out more. Not more in the sense of something more, but that state is absolutely essential to discover the immeasurable or not.
Yes. I think this is true, so that we do, in a sense, find seeing in loving and being in being alone.
Yes, sir. You see, that is so that mind
One
must
disassociates itself from disorder. Peace.
Not one mind. In observing disorder, in being aware choicelessly of disorder, order comes.
Yes.
You don't belong to one or there is order.
Order, yes. And as we pursued the question of the meaning of order or harmony or tranquility or peace, we found ourselves with the same answer, but this is to be in the first place. This is to love in the first place. This is to see in the first place.
Order, sir, is one of the most extraordinary things because it's always new. It isn't order according to a pattern.
Oh, yes, no question.
It is a living thing.
Yes.
Virtue is a living thing. It isn't, I am virtuous.
Yeah.
No, you cannot ever say I'm virtuous because if you say that, you are not virtuous. But virtue is a living thing, moving, like a river flowing, alive.
Yeah.
And therefore, in that state, there's something beyond measure takes place.
And it's at that moment that one discovers the immeasurable.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see, not discovers, it is there.
Yes.
You see, discovery and experience are rather unfortunate words because most human beings want to experience something great because their lives are shoddy, their lives are petty, their lives are full of anxiety. They say, for God's sake, give me greater experience, something more. Therefore, these meditations, these groups forming who meditate and all that, they are searching for that. Whereas they have to bring order in their life first. And then what takes place is something quite beyond measure. I think that's it.
So then if we are pursuing the question of the measurelessness, if we are pursuing the...
you can't pursue it.
Well, and you can't discover it.
You can't
these
pursue
are fine. That's good. You cannot pursue it. You cannot discover it. And it's not good to use the word experience about it. All of this we agree on. When one comes upon it,
you'd leave the door open, sir.
you leave the door open.
Let the sun come in.
Yes.
And if the sun comes in, it's all right. If it doesn't, it's all right.
Right, yes.
Because the moment you pursue it, you close the door.
Close the very pursuit is
When
the
the
closing
very
of the door.
search for truth is the closing of truth.
Yes.
Blocking truth.
Yes.
Right, that's it.